Sorry, man.
It's already going if you just want to put it up there.
Is it open in this? I know her. Good morning, family. Kate, alcoholic.
Hi, Kate! We love you, Kate! Lots and lots and lots!
Is this thing on? Awesome, fantastic. Thank you so much, Katie, for asking me to speak, and everybody that's put in work to put this conference together. It's not easy, man, to get a group of drunks together to organize anything into a program that has no rules, but kind of has rules, but has suggestions, but don't tell us what to do, and blah, blah, blah. So my sobriety date, I think it's important to just qualify that. It's September 1st of 2014. Yeah, man, like it's a miracle, right? I was watching this last night do that, and I was like, why is it doing that? Anyways. So, yeah, I haven't found it necessary to take a drink or a drug or any mind-altering substances, no tinctures from the health food store that have grain alcohol, like dandelion root or anything, or mouthwash that has alcohol or Marcella wine, like all those things, like I don't fuck around with that today because I was the relapser that was like, oh, it's fine. No, it's fine. It's not fine, right? It's not fine because I'm the type of alcoholic that if I just taste it, it's on my lips, I'm out, right? And I haven't even felt the effect of it yet, right? So that's that. Let's see, where do we begin? The story. Oh my God. I truly do believe I was born an alcoholic. I believe that when I found my solution of alcohol, that really did everything for me that I couldn't do for myself. So essentially, alcohol was my first higher power, right? I relied on it for everything. And I was the type of drunk that couldn't do anything without it, right? Like I literally relied on it for everything. And I feel like we all have that in common where it's like, we don't fit in, we don't feel right, we just, whatever. And then we finally take that drink or that drug or that whatever it is, and we can finally breathe. We're like, oh my God, I'm gonna chase that until I go to the grave rather than feel the way that I felt all those years, right? That's just kind of how I felt. It's almost like I made like an unwritten pact with alcohol. Like, dude, you are with me, right? And essentially, alcohol was more important than every single thing in my life, whether it was a loved one, a relationship, a hockey career, a music career, whatever it was, always took the back burner until eventually I had none of those things left. Because the more alcohol and drugs does for you in the beginning is the more it takes from you in the end, right? And if you can relate to that, then you definitely belong here. Because it did everything for me in the beginning, and it absolutely, it's like one of those things I'm like, did it take everything or did I just fucking hand it over? Because I needed this, right? And when you get to a point where you're physically and mentally addicted to substance, you've now lost choice. And someone that isn't an addict or an alcoholic will never understand that. You know, like my mom, for example, like, you knew what was gonna happen. You knew this was gonna happen. Why did you do it? And we look at them straight in the face, and we really mean it when we say, I have no idea. I have absolutely no fucking idea, because I don't want to do it anymore. I don't like doing it anymore, but I don't know how to not do it, and I don't have enough willingness to find out how to not do it yet, right? That's the trick. The key ingredient to this program is willingness and action, right? And a lot of other stupid things like honesty and, I don't know, writing a force, blah, 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 right? But first and foremost, I must become willing. And nobody can make anybody willing to do anything. You want to lose weight? I used to work at a gym. It's like almost the same thing. They'd come in, and they'd complain, it's not working. It's like, what are you eating when you go home? You know what I mean? Because what you're doing here is great, right? But you don't have that willingness. Until I have a willingness to change, till I'm in enough pain, because there's another key ingredient to change, till I'm in enough pain, I am not going to change. And for the real alcoholic as described in the literature, I need to be in a lot of pain. And I have a very high pain tolerance. And I go lower and lower, and I get accustomed to pain, and pain is comfortable. Because then I get a little sobriety, and I'm like, oh my God. What? I'd be like, it's fucking bright out. Like, it's like, what? You know, you're like a newborn baby, but in an adult body. Like, you have no idea what's going on. Like a chicken that just hatched and is like shaking and quivering and is like, woo, one raw nerve, man, you know? And that was unfamiliar to me because I started drinking and drugging when I was like 14. I never developed any coping skills, and quite frankly, I didn't want to. Fuck coping skills. I had alcohol. That's what works for me, right? And I'm going to do what works for me. Alcohol was my oxygen. I couldn't breathe without it. I could not function without it. And in the beginning, I wasn't physically addicted. You know, it's progressive, and I like that the gentleman last night said that recovery is progressive too. If we keep doing it and doing it and doing it, it's going to like, well, in this sense, it's the opposite. It will get better if we do recovery, not worse. But if we pick up, it will get worse and never better. And that's a fact. Like if you stay around the program long enough, and you'll see people relapse. You might even relapse. They're like, oh, it's not part of recovery. And it's not part of recovery, but it's part of fucking addiction. I'm hardwired to drink and use. However, when I stumble into this program unwillingly at first, seeds are getting planted and I don't even know it. You know what I mean? I was the girl that sat in the back of the hall in relapse row, death row, whatever you want to call it, with my sunglasses on and my wife beater and my alcohol in my Starbucks cup, and I was taking everyone's inventory, and I was like, I'm not as bad as them yet. The guy said it last night too. I'm not as bad as them. All those yets, right? In 365 days after I entered Alcoholics Anonymous, I can say I checked every yet that I said I hadn't done off that list. Like, okay, maybe fine, maybe no, whatever. But again, I had to be in so much pain. I'm like, I'd never been to detox. I'd never done this. I'd never done that. And I successfully checked those things off the list. And it's weird because I still wasn't ready. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So when I picked up that first drink or whatever it was, my first drink was a wine cooler. And, you know what I mean? And it wasn't ever like, oh, this is good, it tastes good or bad. It was the effect. And the reason I'm an alcoholic is because I like the effect produced by alcohol, drugs. Whatever it is you do, it doesn't fucking matter, right? And so the effect that alcohol produces is that higher power feeling of like, oh my God, I feel now what I see in the outside, like how people are functioning and going to work and like doing normal things. I feel like maybe I just will be able to do that, but only if I have this substance in my body, right? And what a miserable thing. But in the beginning, it's not that bad. So my sister's older than me. She's like 2 years older than me. So she takes me to a party, right? Like I was always hanging out with the older kids. And so she said this thing. I had never had a drink of alcohol in my life, right? Except my parents' beer, because I was obsessed with it when I was little. You know what I mean? Like they'd be at like picnics and barbecues. I'm like, let me try that. Let me just try it. And I'd take a sip and I'm like, it's awful. But there was something about it. I'm like, why did they get to do this? And I can't. What is in that? Like, I want that, right? But anyways, Michelob Light. That's what my parents drank. Me a Mick Light. So we go to this party and my sister's like, you know, because, all right, let me actually say this first. Before I'm an alcoholic and an addict, what I suffer from more than anything is the human condition, right? From thinking, that's my problem, as they tell me, and drinking is my solution, right? Thinking's the problem, drinking's the solution until it doesn't work. And then you're at step one. So she says this thing to me. So my first addiction wasn't alcohol, it was deviant behavior. Those evil laughs. But it was true. I was stealing from the mall. I was stealing from Claire's boutique, stealing scrunchies and cheap jewelry. Not because I wanted it, not because I needed it, because I wanted the thrill. I was addicted to that thrill. And so I'm hearing people like you guys can identify with that, right? And I'd leave there and it was like, oh, dude, what'd you get? Like this and that and whatever. And then they'd just throw it out. Like I didn't even want it. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell? I went to Ulta the other day to get my girlfriend some makeup. And, right. I was like, what am I doing in here? What's going on? But still afraid to ask for help. I'm like, I'll find it. I know where it is. I don't need no help. Yeah, do you need help? I'm like, no, I'm good. But anyways, when I go to the counter, the manager girl comes up and she has she dumps on the counter 5 security tags. I was like, oh, somebody stole something. And she's like, some guy stole 5 colognes. And immediately I feel like I'm on his side. You know what I mean? I was just like, I go, well, this shit's expensive, dude. I'm like, I go, you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna sell that on the fucking black market. He's gonna leave here. I go, COVID happened, times are tough, man. I just immediately went into a whole narrative of why he did it, justifying it for him. And I was like, thank you, God. There's my reminder that I'm fucking still hardwired this way, right? If I don't continue to chase a solution of some kind, I'm going to be thinking that's a good idea. You know what I mean? I'm going to be thinking, and she's like, he was in a Chicago Bulls hat. He looked like a bum, and I'm just like, well, he ain't going to be looking like a bum when he sells those because he's going to be getting them. But anyway, so that was my first addiction, was stealing and doing things like that. I was constantly harassing my teachers, prank calling them. Back in my day, looking it up in a phone book, Mrs. Smith, doot, 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 on the phone on the wall and everything. And I'm like, I know where you live. I'm coming to get you. Yeah. School wasn't really my thing, man. It was a nuisance. It was annoying. I wanted to play video games and play sports and play music. I didn't do homework. I was the girl that went there the day of the test and I'd ask the smartest girl, I'm like, you're so pretty. Hey, what was that book about? Just give me a narrative real quick and I'll just write something. You know what I mean? That was it. I was the girl that broke in after hours and stole tests, and shit like that. And got into college because I played sports and didn't quite make it through because it's hard. Trying to write a 20-page paper on a word processor, there was not even computers then. I'm dating myself. Today's my birthday. I almost forgot. 44 years. Hey.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kate. Happy birthday to you.
I regret saying that. I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate that. Because literally, I'm still in awe. I'm 7.5 years sober, and I'm still in awe that I'm alive. Sometimes I'm just I'll just be I'm alive? What? This has got to be a joke. But it's not a joke. It's actually fucking amazing. So my first addiction was deviant behavior. Of course, my friend got busted, and it was always this, right? If you can relate to this, I'm sure maybe somebody can. It's my idea. I orchestrate it, and then I blame it on somebody else, right? I'm like, I didn't, Ma, these girls I'm hanging out with, they're bad news. But I was always in my head, I'm like, I'm the ringleader, I dared them to go do it. I'm like, I bet you won't go steal that shit, And then they'd do it, but they weren't as good as me, so they'd get caught. I'm like, you idiot, I know. So then I was doing community service. I was in grade school, And kids have never been my thing. I don't have kids, I don't want kids. I mean, I appreciate other people's kids, but so when I go to this sentencing, in my head, I'm like, as long as it's not any community service with kids, I'll be good. You're going to be doing time at the daycare center. And I was like, oh, come on, man. So, like, God was after me from the beginning, right? I truly believe that God had a really good time watching me, like, until he was like, okay, bitch, I'm exhausted. Like, either you're going to get this or you're not, but I'm done with you. And I'll get to that when I get to that part of the story. But, like, he was all set. He's like, I'm tired. So that was my first addiction. So anyway, so I go to take that first drink, right? I'm at the party, and my sister's like, she says this thing. It's kind of like the hot stove thing. She's like, don't drink too much. And I was like, don't threaten me with a good time, bitch. Like, and you know what I mean? I had never had a drink of alcohol, but the fact that she said that, I immediately wanted to break that rule. I immediately wanted to go higher than that. So I took that first drink, and that first drink did for me what I couldn't do for myself. I was social. I was like talking to people. I was feeling good, man. You know, they say it and we hear it all the time, like alcohol was the solution to my problem. And then at the end of the drinking, you hear things like, there's only 2 solutions to my alcoholism. Alcohol or Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And if I don't choose one of those, I'm going to die. Like, that's the type of alcoholic that I am, you know? I can't white knuckle it. I can't just hope for the best. Like, I have to do the inner work. So as I had mentioned, I played music, and I was a drummer. I was in a band in high school with a couple guys, and also I was playing ice hockey. That was what I did on the weekends. I traveled. I was on a statewide team. A girls' team, I was on boys' teams, and that was my obsession. I made my dad flood the backyard, put up spotlights, like I was out there all night long skating, and I put my all into it, and I mean, it worked out in that favor is that I did, because my grades were so not great. Well, they were kind of great because I was cheating, but I didn't, you know what I mean? Oh my God, a B-, this is great. You know, math, I did flunk out of math. My parents got me a tutor, and I'd go there every week, and she'd show me and walk me through, and I'd go back to her. She's like, what'd you get on the test? I'm like, a 49. Yeah, I think I got it. But the good news is I'm here to report 20 plus years later, I still have never needed algebra. I've never needed it. And I knew it back then. I was like, I'm never going to need this. You know what I mean? Like, but anyways. So I was in the band, whatever. So I got recruited to play ice hockey at a Division I school. I went to Northeastern in Boston, go Huskies. When I heard that dude last night say he was doing something, he was taking a shit on Huntington Ave, I was like, yeah. Yeah, Huntington Ave for sure. That's where Northeastern is. It's on Huntington Ave. But what I was doing on Huntington Ave was, when you live in the city, right? Everyone parks really close. They're like all lined up along the thing. I thought the most fun thing was to get on one at the end and run up and down all the cars and set the alarms off. I loved doing that, man. I loved it. That was like my party trick. Like when the bar would close, I'm like, let's go. And then I'd get caught, the Northeastern police, and I'd be like, they're like, what's your name? I'm like, Sarah Smith. Do you have ID? I'm like, no, I'm 19. I'm with, you know what I mean? But anyways, so that all continued. Needless to say, I did not make it through college. I made it through like a year and a half. I didn't want to be there, and when I dropped out, I blamed my coach, I blamed the team, I blamed the school, I blamed my mother, everybody except for the fact that really I just wanted to drink. I wanted to drink. It was getting in the way, and anything that gets in between me and my substance, eventually I will remove from my life, right? Either it will remove itself because it's sick and tired of my shit, if it's a person or whatever, or I'll remove it. I'm like, I didn't need you anyway. You were just getting in my way. I didn't need that job. Ugh. Going in there, I can't even, So like we end up settling for less and less and less and less, and that becomes more acceptable as we go down the scale. No matter how far down the scale we've gone. So when I dropped out of college, I got into a band. So I was like, I'm going to be a musician, man. I'm going to be a rock star. And so I was a drummer in a band, and like it was really fun, like, to be honest with you. Like, we played a lot of bars and clubs in Boston and New York City and Vermont. I would not come in New Hampshire. Like, I was just, when I left New Hampshire, I was like, I'm never stepping foot in this state again. Because I blamed the cops, so they have nothing better to do, And like, no, bitch, you are breaking the law. Like, you were stealing things. Like, they weren't, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't their fault, but, whatever. But we come to find that out in our fourth step, and that's why we do the work. Because I can't continue to go on and play the blame game and point the finger. You know what I mean? Because every time I point the finger, like, whatever they say, there's like 5 fingers pointing back, whatever. That stupid saying. But like, you know what I mean? So I got in the band, and we were playing a lot. And so like, the disease of alcoholism is absolutely progressive, right? So like, what that looks like is I need more quantity to achieve that result that I had when I took that first wine cooler, right? That deep breath, right? I heard this, like, I don't know if it's a joke or like, or whatever, but one of my favorite speakers was like, because we're alcoholics till we die, right? Till the core, like we're treating it, and it's like in submission or whatever, but like it's a daily reprieve, right? And so, but we still are alcoholic. Like, I could not drink for these 7.5 years, pick up and be exactly where I was, if not worse than that, just like that in 24 hours. And I know that from experiences that I would get some time and relapse, and all I had to do was drink for a day, and I had to go to detox to medically detox, because that's how, like, far along, I consider myself a late-stage alcoholic. Like, that's how bad it got. Like DTs, like that whole whatever, ambulance rides and all that shit. So, So the disease is progressive, so I'm needing more and more quantities. Because, like, I remember the timeline so specifically of, like, Heineken was, like, my water. Beer's 98% water, so I was very well hydrated. And so Heineken was my beer, because I was like, I needed something. I've always wanted something stronger, because people are like, oh, if I drink those, I get messed up. I'm like, that's what I want. Or like the most potent beer I ever drank was a Harpoon Winter. I don't know what I would blame it on the spice. I'm like, it's the nutmeg. It is the nutmeg, you guys. I am high on nutmeg. And anytime you're sick, I don't know, is that steak and cheese, man? No, it wasn't the 3 bottles of champagne for breakfast. Hell no. Delusional. Absolutely delusional. So I was suffering from something. This is really important. I need to talk about this. The underlying issues of the alcoholic and the addict. For me, it looked like severe anxiety and panic disorder. Me being up here like I am, totally nervous right now, but I'm walking through it. You know what I mean? Because I did pray this morning, and I was praying this morning and it wasn't working. Meaning, like, I was still, like, really nervous. I was just like, ugh. But I've learned that I can't force it. I have to sit there until I can connect. And what ended up working for me that got me past that hump of, like, all right, maybe I can do this, is the fear prayer. And it's in the literature. God, please remove this fear and direct my attention to what you'll have me be. And I say that as a mantra in my head until all of a sudden I feel okay. What a fucking miracle that is. So if you have ever suffered from fear or anxiety, I highly recommend doing that prayer as a mantra in your head with your eyes closed until you connect with it. And you're like, you know what? Fuck it. God needs me. I got to show up. And I look at it this way. All those years he saved my ass, I can't even get into the number of, like, really near-death experiences that we all have. I owe this to him. I owe it to him to show up. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I let fear win, I don't know if he's going to take care of me anymore. Because I look at it like he's looking at me like, bitch. Because that's how he talks to me. That's how my God talks to me. Like, bitch, I didn't save you to not show up. I didn't save you to let fear continue to run your life, man. You know what I mean? So as nervous as I am or whatever, like, I have to show up. It's my obligation because somebody showed up for me. When I was newly sober, actually I was newly sober, and the young people's was in Concord at the Grapponi Center. I don't know if anyone was there. And Teresa F. spoke. She's amazing. I've listened to her speaker tapes since then, from that day to this day, like just yesterday, I was listening to her speaker tape because she's that bomb. But I was so out of my mind in that conference, you guys. Like, I didn't know what to expect. There was the hooting, people were dancing on chairs, and I was like, what is going on? I had so much anxiety, man. But I walked through it, and the best way to conquer fear for me is to push myself through. Because I can't let that shit own me today, right? My story's kind of all over the place, but I just speak whatever is coming out of my mouth, you know? Because I do ask God, I know, yeah, if I say anything you don't like, blame it on God, because I did ask him to speak through me. Yeah, I always say that. But, and I do, you know what I mean? God, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to be of service, to share the message of hope, and please, use me as a vessel to pass a message to somebody, even if it's just one person that needs to hear what I need to, what I'm going to say. And it's always thank you. Like, thank you for this opportunity. That turns my fear into more like love. Because as much as I'm scared, and like when Katie asked me, my first thought was like, fuck no, I'm not doing this. There's no way. And then she's like, well, take some time, pray on it, whatever. And I was like, I don't need to take time. I wrote back to her and I was like, the only excuse I would have is that I'm afraid to do it. And that's not a good enough excuse. So here I am. So as a child, I was suffering from such bad panic disorder and anxiety that I was fainting. I was losing my vision. Like it almost happened when I was sitting there. In my head, while I was sitting there when this was all happening, I want to say this because if you've experienced it, I want you to know you can walk through it, right? I was sitting there and in my head, I was like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get off this stage. Like it was really starting to take over. I connected with that fear prayer again. You know what I mean? Like I internally was like, God, please remove this fear. Direct my attention to what you'll have me be, right? This isn't about me. This isn't like self-centered bullshit. This is what can I do for other people here? And I don't want to let people down and be the girl that like walks off and be like, I can't do this, dude. So, so that's what I do. So in any event, the point of me telling you that I was suffering from all that is that I was using alcohol to self-medicate that disorder, right? And it works until it doesn't. Eventually, if you're a real alcoholic and an addict, the day will come, it's going to be the worst, when your drug or your drink stops doing for you what it did in the beginning, which is providing you with ease and comfort. No matter how much quantity you take, you can't get drunk and you can't get sober. That's when you're at step one. You're fucked. Or you're not. You know what I mean? So, what time is it?
Game time.
28. Okay, 20. All right, good. Okay, we're doing good then. All right. Doing good. I can get really caught up in the backstory, but I'm really proud of myself that I haven't gotten too caught up in the backstory. I'm talking more about like the program. It's hard because one thing you don't ever want to do is plan what you're going to say. I don't even do that shit. I'm not like, I got to write notes. I got to think of, no. Because it ain't going to go that way. And that's how life is. What I think is going to happen isn't going to happen. So that's anxiety. Worrying about the future, being regretful and remorseful about the past, and cannot be present right here and right now. That is like, explains an alcoholic to the T, right? And that was me. I was the what if girl. Well, what if I go there and this happens? What if I speak? What if I fall? What if I faint? What if I choke? What if I... Shut the fuck up. Like you can't. Just shut up. That is the disease. And the only thing that would shut that up back then was alcohol, right? Now, oh my God, a prayer? What? You gotta be joking, man. You know how much money I paid to get that feeling and all I have to do is hit my knees? For something not, you know. I used to say that to sponsees that are like, I don't want to pray. I don't want to. I'm like, bitch, you've been hitting your knees for years. Like, and not even. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about, for me, I was puking my guts out every day, man. Like, I just remember, like, I'd be like hanging in the toilet, and I'd be like, God, if you can hear me. I didn't even mess with the I'll never do this again, because I knew I would. I didn't even like play that game. I was just like, just get me leveled out, man, so I can like maybe go to work to get money to pay for this habit. That's really all I wanted. I wasn't like, I'll never do this again. I'm like, I'm not even gonna play with, like, I'm not about to lie. Like, he already knows, you know what I mean? Like, but anyways, so I was in that band, whatever, and then the ego was getting the best of me, right? Like being on stage, performing, and things like that. I was misusing my God-given talents. So I was using, I called my guitar like the love potion. Like, oh, there's a party with a bunch of lesbians? Like, maybe I'll bring my guitar, you know? And, sorry, babe. This is my past life, you know what I mean? It's my past life. Literally, I have had a complete and total psychic change, so we'll get to that too. But, so I was a drummer in the band, and I was like, I'm kind of sick of sitting out back, man. Like, I want to be up front. But also the while being riddled with stage fright, right? So let's talk about what we hear in here, the egomaniac with the inferiority complex. Pay attention to me, pay attention to me. Why the fuck is everybody paying attention to me? I can't handle this shit. I'm not even good. I'm gonna break a string, my voice is gonna crack, you know what I mean? Like, but yet I want that attention, right? Because I have an inside void, and you guys are filling that for me. Because I don't love myself. I think I do, because it's false pride. I'm like, I'm the shit, man. I'd totally date myself. You know, I used to say stuff like that. I'm like, why can't I just find me? And then I could date me, and then there wouldn't be any problems. Because I'm such a good catch. Like, I am such a good catch. You know? It got to the point where my last girlfriend, at the end of my drinking, so my drinking kind of like, it was like in 2009 when I was really like, yo, like I am not in a good place. Like, that was when the puking in the morning was starting, and like bringing the bottle of vodka like to the toilet, drink, puke, crying, looking in the mirror, like looking like just at a shallow, like soulless person. I remember, I'll never fucking forget it. Looking in that mirror that particular day, and I was like, am I ever gonna have any feelings? Like, am I ever gonna feel? I feel nothing. I could give two fucks about anybody in my life. And I was like, I need a drink. I can't handle this. Oh my God. But it was like, you know, you have those moments, right? In the beginning, you don't, because you're not really like there yet. You're too wrapped up in the, like, for me, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, you know? But when it was starting to not be fun, that's when I would have moments like that where I was like, I don't even want to do this anymore. But here we go. Rinse and repeat. That's what I was doing. I'd come to, I'd grab the Jameson, I'd puke my guts out, I'd drive to work, I'd pour cocktails at my desk, I'd go and waitress at night, I'd party all night, I'd bring someone home, I'd go to Chinatown, I'd go to the strip club, I'd convince someone else to pay my tab, I'd take a town car home and say, I don't have money. And you know what I mean? Like, it was just, that was all the time, man. I was living in Boston. I lived in Boston for 17 years. And, B-town. And that city was fucking swallowing me whole, you know? I really liked what the speaker last night was like. He was so jacked up, like just walking down the street and just barfing in the middle of the day. That was me. I literally was just telling someone that. I'm like, I'd be walking down Newbury Street, you know, like the nice, that's like a nice street in Boston. And I'd just be like people are at like, you know, the Armani Cafe and like all of that stuff. And I'm like, you know, and then I'd pull the nip of Bushmills out and be like, and say things as crazy as, you wish you were doing what I was doing. You guys wish you were doing this. Like, so crazy, man. We are so crazy, so delusional. I lived this lifestyle where I would say things like, I'm going out for cocktails. I'm going out for dirty martinis, and like my dinner was always the 3 olives. Like that was my dinner, 3 olives doused in vodka. Like that was my dinner. Oh my God, I'm in a flashback. Anyways, but that's why we do this shit. That's why we tell our stories, because the minute I forget where I come from is the minute I'm going to think it's okay to go back and do that shit again. That's why we tell our story. That's one of the reasons, right? So I ended up getting into my own band, and that was a lot of fun. I had groupies, there was t-shirts and merch, and it was crazy. And I'd say things like, I'm not playing another song until someone brings me a shot of Jameson. And I'd like get on bended knee and like do the shot and like it was just crazy, man. It was a good time, and that's why I really struggled getting sober. I'm like, how the hell am I gonna go from that fun lifestyle to like sitting in a church basement with old people? Like, I don't know if I can do this, man. Until you have the willingness of a drowning man, and you're like, you have to get to this jumping off place where I said step 1, you can't get drunk, you can't get sober. You have to make a decision. That's the jumping off point. What is your choice to be? God is either everything or he is nothing. There is no in between for a real alcoholic. So there's not the, well, I'll do this but not that. No, bitch, do it all. You have to do it all. You did it all when you were drinking. Anything someone put in front of you, yeah, why not? Where's that going to take me? Let's go. Let's get fired up. And that was my thing. I was the girl that I was into the party drugs, and you know what I'm talking about. I thought I was going to become an ecstasy dealer at one point. I was like, I'm going to make so much money. Oops, I ate all the pills. I made no money. Like, we got to test the product. I made absolutely no money. I ate the entire bag of pills, and my brain is definitely has taken a toll from it, for sure. To the point where I was doing so much of that, I completely lost my motor skills. I couldn't hold things. I couldn't write. I was like becoming disabled. So anyways, so I'm like, well, I better not do that. I'll just do this instead, because it's probably not cut with as much crazy stuff. But it's never enough to scare me to be like, I should stop. That's not an option. It's what can I do? What can I alter in this chemical equation so that I don't do, that doesn't happen, right? Okay, I'll just, now I'm on this kick. Organic wine. That sounds healthy, Not as much sulfate and all that shit or whatever. And so I was the girl that my liquor store special ordered stuff. Like, they're like, oh, your box of wine came in. I'm like, yes, dude. And I'd go there in the middle of the day. They're like, oh, you having a party? I'm like, no. This is for me. I'm just trying to get right, man. I was going to say that thing, and now I just remembered it. So being an alcoholic until we go into the grave, and still even after our last breath be alcoholic. Because they say after the alcoholic dies, if you take their brain out of their head and you put it in a jar of vodka, you're still going to hear, and that's a friendly reminder that that's us till we die, man. This doesn't go away. But I feel so blessed to have this disease. It's done so many good things for me, man. So many good things. So let's get down to it. So step 1, I did 1, 2, and 3 right in the hospital without even knowing it. You know what I mean? Like, I was in a place where I had come to AA for 2 years, and I was the buffet style. I'll do this, but not that, right? I didn't take suggestions. Oh, you should do the chips. I'm like, you should do the chips. Like, I'm not doing the chips, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not getting in front of a room full of people. I'd say things like, you don't understand the kind of anxiety that I have. Like, I'm unique, right? I'm like, no, this is like real. Like, you can't pray this type of anxiety away. Like, this is like, I need medication. I need Xanax. So I rode the benzo train for 2 years while I was like, so I was considering that sober, right? And this could be controversial, whatever. This is my personal experience, is that I don't now, looking back on it, I was never sober when I was on them pills, you know what I mean? I'd go to the nooner and be like so jacked up with anxiety. I'd go to the bathroom, I'd chew some Xanax, come back, I'd cry, I'd yell at everyone in the meeting, call them all a bunch of frauds. I'm like, this program doesn't work, you know, as I'm eating benzos in the back, you know what I mean? And I didn't tell anybody about that. So if you're in a position where you're like, I'm taking this, but I don't want to tell anybody, that's when it's an issue, man, right? Like, so I'm hiding something, and the disease so desperately wants me to protect it. Because if I tell you, then you're gonna know, and then I might have to do something about it. Ugh. You know? But my disease brain told me something different. like the great thing the disease will tell me is this time it'll be different, here's how, right? Oh, no, just don't do that, don't hang out there, don't do this, you'll be just fine. Just drink Guinness, it's like a milkshake. You'll be all right. 7 Guinnesses later, heck, you know what? Give me a shot of J-Mo. I don't have any money. Can anyone pay my ticket? You know what I mean? I was the girl that did this all the time. I'm like, I'm going to take this call and just leave. That would be the end of it. All right, we're getting close. All right, so I ended up in the hospital, blah, blah, blah. I had gone to the loony bin. I had gone to 5 West. God bless 5 West. And I loved it in there. I'm like, these are my people. I'm in the loony bin. It's right where I belong, man. And I remember saying, so it was crazy people, and then there was like me and one other addict, right? Because I'm not necessarily crazy. I'm an untreated alcoholic. I am suffering from a brain-based illness. I am suffering from mental illness, but it's not the kind that the other people in there were suffering from, right? I was suffering from alcoholism, right? And so there was one other girl in there, an addict. They took us for a little field trip. They're like, let's take a walk around the hospital campus. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, who's going to see me? And I'm in, like, scrubs and this and that. But I'm walking with the girl, and she looked at me, and she's like, did you ever think this is where you'd end up? Did you ever think when you know what I mean, like, took that wine cooler that this is where you were going to be? I'm like, dude, no. I did not. And frankly, if someone told me then, I wouldn't have cared. I would have been like, my face. And I was in that loony bin, and there was a gentleman in there. I was a mess in there. There was a gentleman in there that had Huntington's disease, and he was like wheelchair bound, blah, blah, blah. And so I was crying. I'm like, I can't do this. And he, you know, these are, the profound moments. And he was like, the type of disease you have can be treated. Mine can't. I can't shower myself. I can't feed myself. I can't walk. You have this body that is able, willing, and still working by the grace of God. You do have a way out. And I was like, well, that was a humbling moment. Like, you know, here I was playing the victim, like, poor me. And he's like, girl, I would take where you're at any day, man. And that was a humbling moment. I didn't stay sober. I had to go back out one more time. Back in detox I went. I was so broken, you guys. I was 100 pounds, sick as a dog. And I was void of all of the substances at that point. What I was going to do is take another trip down to 5 West. I'm like, lock me up. I cannot be trusted on the outside. I do not want to drink anymore, but I can't not do it. So take me to the loony bin. So they were going to take me to the psych unit because they won't take you there until you're completely detoxed. And so I detoxed or whatever, and I'm curled up in the fetal position, and I'm just like literally like kind of talking to God. I'm like, why can't I get this? What is wrong with me? Am I constitutionally incapable of being honest? Grave emotional and mental disorders, like am I that? You know, I think like all of us can relate to like, I think that's me that they're talking about, you know? At some point we feel that way, like how am I gonna get this? And so God came in really strong and powerful and was like, get on your knees. This was my moment, you guys. It was a profound spiritual awakening. It was just like Bill W.'s. There was no breeze or like the wind blowing and all that stuff. I do say it was a white light experience. It was fluorescent, but it was still a white light experience. It was profound. You can't even explain it. And I was on that bed going, oh, but God, I'm so tired. I'm so weak. Still playing the victim, right? He's like, get on your knees. So I did, and I get down there, and I'm trying to do prayers, like self-will prayers, right? And all of a sudden, this message just came in, this mantra that was like, picking up is no longer part of your path. Picking up is no longer part of your path. And all of a sudden I got on board with it. And just like that, I had a complete and total psychic change. Complete rearrangement of thought process. I can't explain it. I can just tell you what happened. So they were going to come back and wheel me down. This all happened within like 5 or 6 hours. And I took a shower. I folded my scrubs. I made my little hospital bed. Like I was a brand new person. I can't explain it. And so they came in because they thought they were taking me down there. And I was like, thank you for your services, but I need to go to a meeting. I need to get out of here. And they were like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what just happened? I was like, God, I found religion. Right, dude? Like, so I left there and I went to a meeting. I went to the Wednesday night Ask It Basket meeting in Concord. I got my 24-hour chip, and for the first time I got honest. I cried. I got vulnerable. I let people know I just got out of detox, and then I wanted to stay sober more than I wanted to drink. I wanted to live more than I wanted to die. And I'll do anything that you guys say. Do chips, I'll do chips. Go to commitments, I'll go to commitments. Make coffee, I'll make coffee. I'm like, that means I need to get here early? Fine. Anything I wanted to do, I didn't do. Anything I didn't want to do, that's the stuff that I did. That's my advice for a newcomer. If you don't want to do something, that's the stuff you really want, that you really need to do, because you will get outside of yourself, you'll get there early, you'll meet people, old timers, and you'll start doing things that you wouldn't normally do. And that takes a lot of the fear away. So 1, 2, and 3 was easy. I'm watching the cloud for that. So 1, 2, and 3 was easy for me because it all happened right there and then in the hospital. Powerless over alcohol, life was a complete shit show. Power greater than myself, I was already talking to God in that moment. And in that moment, I turned my will and my life over. I was like, I was on board. I was so on board. I haven't lost that fire. The moment I walked, in a vision for you, it talks about that lawyer that's in the hospital again, in detox, and on the 3rd day, he had that profound experience, and he walked from the hospital a free man and hasn't had a drink since. That is my exact story. I walked from that hospital. I haven't had a drink since. Why? Because I've been chasing this thing called recovery the way I used to chase a drink and a drug. I chase it hard. I'm addicted to spiritual experiences and awakenings, and the cool thing is that I have that one profound one, and not everybody does, and don't feel bad if you didn't or whatever. Like, our journeys are completely individual to ourselves. All that matters is that we're here. That's why I say it doesn't matter what drugs you took, how many you did, how you did them, where, when, what. What matters is it brings us to places like this, and we connect with each other, and we finally feel like we belong somewhere, right? Like when we can relate, when someone's telling a story, like a tragic story, or, I got arrested and then I told the cops to go, whatever. We're like, ha! Oh my God, no way, me too. That's crazy, dude. But you tell that to a normal person, they're like, oh my God. Like, my mom's horrified. When I tell her certain stories, she's like, oh my God. Like, she's just like totally horrified. But we get it. We get it, and that's why we're here. And the secret sauce of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is one drunk helping another. And the point is that I can't go from 1 to 12 and be that much of service, like the gentleman last night said. How can I pass along something I haven't got? How can I take someone through a 4th if I haven't written? How can I take someone through a 5th if I haven't read? How can I take you know what I mean? Like, I have to have that experience. And for me, I did big book step study, and it took me a long time. I wrote my 4th step for 3 years. I got tendinitis. I wrote for an hour every single day. I fell asleep writing a lot of times, and there'd be stream of, I'd be writing and I was passed out, But I did it. I had 16 5-subject notebooks. I had 5,045 resentments. I had 380 forms of fear and 380 sex conducts. It was... Girl, there was no stone that I left unturned, because I was a relapser. I was petrified that if I left something out, I was going to relapse, and I didn't want to. So Britney Spears was on there, my therapist, anybody, you know what I mean? Montel Williams, anybody that at some point I felt righteous about, oh, she's using auto-tune, she don't even know how to sing, what about me? That was on there, right? Because at some point I drank at that. You know what I mean? Because you come in, you're like, well, I don't really resent her anymore. But at one point in your career, you had a righteous feeling about that kind of fueled your disease, right? And so getting to the end or whatever, I've chased this thing hard, man. And to get through the fear and anxiety of speaking, I went on a commitment after commitment after commitment. Anytime they're like, oh, we're going to rehab, I'm like, I'll go, until finally they're like, do you want to just be in charge of this commitment? Like, I was like, yeah, man, I'll do it. And it was like, I can't express to you how powerful it is to be able to go into a rehab and a detox and talk to people that are sick and suffering. And some of them get it. And some of them you see when you leave there at meetings, and you're like, all right, but a lot of them you don't, right? Maybe they didn't make it. A lot of times I go, because I went every month, and you see the same people. Hey, you're here again. Hey, revolving door. Because we can get addicted to treatment facilities. It's a warm place to sleep, get a little food, get myself right for 30 days, and go back and do it again because I'm insane. And insanity tells me not only if I do the same thing over and over, I do not, the most insane of the alcoholic is that who knows, right? I do the same thing over and over. I don't expect no different result. I know exactly what's going to happen, and I don't give. I'm doing it anyway. That's insanity. That's when someone asks you, why did you do it? I have no idea. And it says that in the literature. It's like, why'd you do it? I have just as much explanation as you. I have no idea. I didn't even want to do it. 6 and 7 in character defects. I mean, that's a daily thing. I do a prayer. I've been doing the same prayers for 7.5 years. I do the 3rd, the 7th, the 11th. That's mandatory. I do it. I've memorized them. You don't have to do that, but that's what worked for me. My sponsor gave me a printout with those prayers. She's like, all you need to do is get on your knees and just read that every morning. And that was like good for me because I needed some direction, you know. Don't leave it up to me to like alter the prayers. And why does it always say he? And when you're 19, no, I got to stop trying to rewrite history, man. I got to stop, like if I'm focusing on rewriting history and what it says here like that, I'm missing the message. I'm missing the solution because it's not about that stuff, right? I can get racist about that, whatever. Anyway, so, but my point of telling you that is to just stay focused on the recipe, the 12 steps, right? Don't get caught up in like, you know, it's written in the 30s, I don't get it. And a lot of it is weird. My book is completely highlighted. I looked up so many words because I didn't know a lot of them. And I had enough humility to be like, I don't know what that means, you know? And so, what I did is I look it up and I write the definition and then I read it out loud with the definition and then it clicks, it sinks in. I wanted to understand this. I wanted to really, really soak it in. And the doctor's opinion is like mind-blowing. I read that when I first came in and I was like, there's a lot more going on here than just I'm an alcoholic and I like to drink and party. Like I actually have a disease, right? All right, we're there. So anyways, I have the same sponsor I've had since I got sober. I sponsor Katie right now. I've had other sponsees, but they get to the work and they catch the 4-step flu. They do, and they don't come back. That's it. And a lot of people do. They don't want to take a look at that shit. I look at it this way. It's already happened. So what? I can't undo it. If I can't take a look at that, how am I going to move forward and be a different person? If I can't get that in black and white and read it to somebody and own up to that stuff, which now I'm disconnected from it because I'm not that person anymore. So who cares? I'm literally writing about somebody that doesn't exist anymore. I would say that I'm like, that person's dead. Literally, she died, and I have been reborn. Not in a religious kind of way, but like God has given me a second life. Second to none. I still don't know what that means. I'm always at second to none, so like at first, I don't know. And that's just kind of the facts. And so to end it with I like to end kind of like with the gifts of sobriety, right? You know, when I put hockey down and walked away from the game that was like the love of my life in 1998, I never got back on the ice until I got sober. And I went to the ponds and I was like, I don't know, because I got sober in September, so that particular winter, so I was a few months sober, and I'm like, I think I'm going to go skate. And like at White's Park, if you know it, so they flooded every morning with the hose, and I conveniently had an apartment right across the street, because God sets me up like that, you know what I mean? And so I got the skates, I dusted them off, and I was the only one there, and it was a sunny day, and the ice was perfect, and I just started crying, dude, because I was like, 3 months ago, I was in a wheelchair in detox. You know, maybe I'll live, maybe I'll die, maybe I'll walk, maybe I won't. I can't read, I can't write, like I'm jacked up, and now I'm on the ice. Thank you, God. that I started playing music again. I started doing the coffee shops that they were doing, and I did those. I walked through that fear, and what happened with that experience was God said to me, I've blessed you with a gift to know how to play music. You need to share that with people, and not do it with ill intention of like getting attention or wanting people. You share it because it's a gift. And once I connected with that, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I've totally missed the whole point. I missed the forest for the trees and all of that stuff. I was misusing my talents, and it was killing me. If you want to stay sober, I encourage you to do the work. If you don't want to get sober, don't do the steps, because you just might recover. I do believe that I have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. I don't say, oh, I'm recovering. I'm not recovering anymore. I have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. To stay recovered, I have to do the drill. I have to do the drill. And the drill has changed over the years. It doesn't always look the same. You know what I mean? I've got into like meditation groups and sound healing and all kinds of different stuff. I'm constantly enlarging my spiritual life. Continue to chase that. You know how when you started with that wine cooler, somehow you ended up with like 20 ecstasies and this, you went like this? That's how the recovery has to be. You start down here, it's like, what can I do next? A shaman? Sure, why not? You know what I mean? Like going on a shamanistic, like spirit animal journey, let's go. And that's it, man. My spirit animal, when I went on that journey, ended up being like a whale, like a big, majestic whale or whatever. And when I went into the journey, I'm like, it's going to be a tiger. It's going to be a lion. Like, I know I'm a cat for sure. And the dude was like, don't go into this thinking that just be open. And I'm like, nah, I'm a cat. But then I was like, when I went into the journey, I'm like, I don't really like the woods or like the trees, like, you know what I mean? Like, I like water. So then I like came into contact with like a turtle, and then I was like, dolphins are annoying with that chirp. That's not my thing. But then this whale came, and I was like, I connected. And he's like, when it comes, you'll know. And it came, and then I looked up the meanings and all these things, and I was just like, dude, life is crazy, and God is always present. And when we're open for that experience, we see it. These miracles were happening all around us, and we weren't seeing it because we were dousing our bodies with drugs and alcohol. And now that we're present, we can see it, we appreciate it, and that's where the gratitude comes from. Thank you.